My biggest, regret is what happened in Benghazi. It was a terrible tragedy, losing 4 Americans, 2 diplomats, and now it's public, so I can say 2 CIA operatives.
Now that, of course, was former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton finally admitting her biggest regret, and that being the deadly terror attack in Benghazi. So why the shift from her infamous line, "What difference does it make?" As we continue, conservative senators Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, she did say, "What difference does it make?" And there was a request for security beforehand that was denied. We were told that during the attack nobody helped, and then after we got a big lie.
Right. I think the one thing is that the American people want a commander-in-chief who will send reinforcements. We don't want a commander-in-chief who's not going to protect our ambassador, not to provide security, and when asked imminently for help, not to send reinforcements. So I think it really precludes her even from being considered in 2016. And she really should apologize, frankly, and accept responsibility for the debacle. She says, "Oh, I didn't read the cables." Why didn't she read the cables? That's absolutely her responsibility. When an ambassador's pleading for help, why didn't she send help?
Why didn't they send the security ahead of time?
Yeah, that's exactly the question.
It's a very good question. And, she says that's her biggest regret. All right, we can believe that. We can take that at face value. But talk's cheap. If it's really her biggest regret, then she should join in calling for a joint select committee in Congress to investigate what happened in Benghazi. We don't know why nothing was done in response to the multiple reports of terrorist activities. We don't know why the State Department repeatedly turned down requests for additional security. We don't know why there were not military assets in place to save those 4 brave Americans. And we don't know why nobody has been held accountable, nobody at the State Department, and none of the terrorists who carried out this terrorist attack have been brought to justice. And so I'm sorry, Sean, you've got 2 kids. Mm-hmm. If your kids are fighting and one says they're sorry, sorry is not just saying it, it's making it right. It's fixing what it is you're doing. If she wants to say she's sorry, it's just like President Obama when he said to the 5 million people who've lost their health insurance because of Obamacare, "I'm sorry." If you're really sorry, that was the most stunning thing last night, that he speaks for over an hour and says not a word.
If you like your plan, you can keep your plan, Senator. If you like it, Doctor, you can keep it, and you're going to save $2,500 a year. I remember those promises.
Yep.
But back to Hillary. Did she say this because she wants to run for president? And do you think there's a political calculation?
It seems with the Clintons almost everything they do is political. But I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. She can demonstrate that regret is sincere by standing up and saying, "We need to get to the truth. We owe it to the American people. Let's have a joint select committee. Let's find out the answers." I'll tell you, it was striking that Gregory Hicks, the Deputy Chief of Mission, career Foreign Service officer, testified before Congress that he got a call from Cheryl Mills, Hillary Clinton's top political aide, telling him, "Don't speak to Congress, don't speak to the press, don't tell anyone what happened. You know what? You're not sorry if you're engaged in a cover-up." And she needs to come clean. She needs to support getting to the bottom of what happened.
Let me go through one last concept with both of you. You are a conservative. You're a conservative. Is there a problem between the establishment in Washington, where you're working every day, and those that want a more active, pro-conservative agenda? Because I think obviously there is. And is it time for the conservatives to unite and put forward a plan that they can articulate, run on, and be united on? Is that possible?
I would say yes, but I would say it's not new. The struggle in the Republican Party for what the Republican Party represents is healthy, and it's always been there. I went to the 1976 convention when I was 13. Reagan and Ford. Reagan was the upstart, Ford was the establishment. But now everybody's a Reagan Republican, Mm-hmm. So there are always these battles, and we have to decide how we're going to present our message and how we're going to have a bigger audience, because the bottom line is we're not winning.
What should the message be? Top 5 items, because I believe it should be the penny plan. I believe it should be energy, 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 because we have more oil resources, shale oil, gas, than all the Middle East combined. I think you got to control the borders, fix education, and offer an alternative to health health care. That's my top 5. What are yours?
I would say we have to boldly and passionately defend the Bill of Rights, and we have to defend individual liberty. Those are grand terms, and we need to defend them for everyone.
And they're
Black,
under
white,
assault.
brown,
Right now, you
name
believe
it.
this president is putting the Bill of Rights under assault.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't...
Look, I think Rand's exactly right. You know, if you look at, he mentioned 1976, Reagan took on Gerald Ford, a sitting Republican president, and it's interestingly enough, all of the voices of Washington said he's this crazy cowboy, he's destroying the party, it's terrible. And yet what Reagan did that unified Republicans in 1980 is he brought us back to core principles. And I think there are really 2 sets of principles we need to get back. Number 1, free market principles. And number 2, the Constitution. Those have been the foundations that have led to opportunity and prosperity.
What are the items that you say to the American people, if elected, will accomplish this, this, and this? Debt, deficits. What are your top few items?
We've got to rein in spending, deficits, and debt. It's gone from $10 trillion to over $17 trillion under Barack Obama. We've got to bring back economic growth and jobs. You mentioned energy. We should be having and can have an American energy renaissance by, number 1, preventing all of these job-killing regulations, getting out of the way and letting us develop our natural resources, but even more so, opening up federal lands. Can you imagine if the federal government wasn't just stopping what was going on, but was actively setting an
The president
environment?
bragged about it last night, right?
Yeah, think about the one thing in our economy is thriving, oil and gas. But what was his proposal for it? To raise taxes on oil and gas. That's the absolute opposite of what we need to be doing. Oil and gas is creating most of the momentum in job creation. It's great. We are becoming more energy independent because of that. So what does he want to do? He wants to punish them and tax them and somehow take away their business
expenses. Isn't it all
expenses.
on private land? Isn't it North Dakota a private land expansion? Midland,
He's
Texas, a private land?
responsible for zero. He's done nothing to help it. In fact,
Leases have gone down 50%.
In fact, he wants to punish oil and gas by raising the taxes.
Well, you and I were talking last night about how in North Dakota, a kid flipping burgers at McDonald's is making 17, 18 bucks an hour. Unemployment in North Dakota is less than 3%.
2.6%.
Booming. It is booming. And the great thing also about energy, if we keep developing our natural resources, we have the capacity to be energy independent. It makes the world a safer place because we're not dependent on countries in the Middle East whose values are very different from our own. But it also has the potential to bring back manufacturing jobs, bring back steel, bring back the sort of jobs where people could go and work an honest day's work and compete with China, not based on low-cost energy. Lord knows we don't want to do that.
But here's what Obama doesn't understand.
Last word. Go ahead.
You know, here's what Obama doesn't understand. Money goes where it's welcome. Why is money going overseas? Why are jobs going overseas? Our taxes are too high. Our corporate rate is twice what Canada's is. We have to lower our taxes. But where is he leading on this? He wants revenue-neutral tax reform or whatever. At the best, that's not going to help anybody. We've got to lower taxes and bring money back home from overseas.
Last question. Will both of you campaign for even against sitting senators if you think a better candidate is running? Real quick.
I'm going to stay out of races with incumbents.
And I likely am going to do the same.
Okay. Guys, good to see you both. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. All right, coming up next. Yeah, I was in attendance at the State of the Union last night, and so are all of my next guests. We're going to turn it over to our focus group of members of Congress right here in Washington for their reaction to the president's speech, the GOP response, and much more. Plus, it's not too late. Send us your questions for the lawmakers on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag AskSean, and we'll get to some of those questions later in the show.